And today I'd like to talk about the terrorism, religious terrorism and extremism in Kyrgyzstan, effects on policing. As you can see, the picture of the iceberg in the first slide is not chosen randomly. It shows how serious the problem of religious terrorism and extremism in Kyrgyzstan. Unfortunately, people see only the tip of the iceberg. I will start my presentation with the threat analysis, which I divided into external and internal threat, with highlighting some most active terrorist and extremist organizations operating or posing a threat to security of Kyrgyzstan and Central Asia. I will talk about the radicalization, and then I will talk about the police efforts in countering terrorism and extremism, some impediments and shortfalls. What do police do? Which department combat against terrorism and extremism in the Interior Ministry of Kyrgyzstan? And at the end, I will give some recommendation. So, Kyrgyzstan is the country in Central Asia which shares the border with Kazakhstan, China, Tajikistan, and Uzbekistan. The population of Kyrgyzstan is 5.5 million, and the area of Kyrgyzstan is total 198,000 square kilometers, which is about the area of South Dakota. And state language is Kyrgyz, and the official language is Russian. Well, there are a number of fundamental organizations, fundamental groups operated in Central Asia, and most of them basically were concentrated in the Fergana Valley. The Fergana Valley is the which encompasses the territory of three Central Asian states: South Kyrgyzstan, North Tajikistan, and east of Uzbekistan, with an overall area of 22,000 square kilometers and the population of 14 million. It's one of the most very densely populated places. And religion always had a great influence in this place. And after being identified and tracked by some of Central Asian governments, some radical movements first resisted, then turned into the terrorist organizations like the Islamic movement of Uzbekistan and the Islamic and its offshoot Islamic Jihad Union. So today, these two terrorist organizations, IGU and IMU, remains the most dangerous terrorist organization which pose a real threat to the security of Kyrgyzstan and Central Asia. As for the internal threat, there are a number of fundamental terrorist organizations, groups like Jaish al-Mahdi, Jund al-Khalifat, Ansarullah, Akramiya, and the extremist organization Hizb ut-Tahrir. So I will start with the IMU, highlighting with IMU. IMU, Islamic Movement of Uzbekistan, was formed in 1996 by Tahir Yuldashev and his friend Jumabay Hajiyev. You can see their pictures from the left to the right. And Jumabay Hajiyev was intrinsically a criminal who previously committed crimes like robberies and murder. After being squeezed out from Uzbekistan by their security structures, IMU went down to Tajikistan. In 1993 to 1997, in Tajikistan, there was a conflict between the government and United Tajik opposition. So the IMU joined on the side of United Tajik opposition and fought on their side. They actually gained a very good experience there, like many radicalized individuals do in Syria today. And in February 16, 1999, IMU organized in Uzbekistan a first a first unsuccessful attempt to assassinate the president of Uzbekistan, Islam Karimov. 16 people died and more than 100 were injured, and this terrorist act is considered as a turning point in the emergence of terrorism in Central Asia. So in the summers of 1999 and 2000, IMU attacked, or IMU tried to penetrate into the south of Kyrgyzstan, and they took many hostages and releasing them only after the negotiation. The Kyrgyz military actually pushed them out, but it took them several months because of the mountainous area and terrorist tactics. But this event showed how difficult it had become to maintain security, not only of Kyrgyzstan but all of Central Asia. And when the United States Armed Forces invaded Afghanistan after September 11, 2001, IMU was heavily disrupted, and they were fighting on the side of Taliban in Afghanistan at that time. But they did not disappear. On the contrary, they took responsibility. They claimed responsibility for a terrorist attack, an ambush which killed officially 27 soldiers in the Rasht Valley of Tajikistan in September 19, 2010. They also claimed responsibility for the attack on the international airport on June 8, 2014, that is a month ago, on the Karachi International Airport. So the current leader of IMU is known as Usman Ghozi, who was known also for his criminal history, and he replaced Usman Adil in 2012. Usman Adil in his turn was a very close relative to the first leader of IMU, Tahir Yuldashev. Another terrorist organization which constitute a real threat to Kyrgyzstan security and Central Asia is the Islamic Jihad Union. Islamic Jihad Union was formed in 2002 by Najimuddin Jalalov. You can see his picture. And IGU was characterized by their brutality. They were supported more by Al-Qaeda and financed more by Al-Qaeda. And in March and April, they organized very brutal terrorist acts, suicide bombings in Bukhara and Tashkent in 2004. And at the same year in July, they organized bombings against the American embassy and embassy of Israel. So IGU characterized as a brutal, and the another peculiarity of IGU is that the members of IGU were not only from Central Asian government. The members were from the Turkey and from Russian Caucasia. So the leader of IGU, Najimuddin Jalalov, was killed in 2009, but current leader of IGU is unknown. Areas of operating and tactics of IMU and IGU, they basically operate in Central Asia. And both IMU and IGU based in Afghanistan and Afghan-Pakistan border. The tactics of IMU is armed attack, suicide bombers, targeted assassination, and involving youth and females in terrorist activity. The objectives and allies of IMU and IGU. Well, the objective of IMU and IGU is the same: to overthrow apostate regime in Uzbekistan and Central Asian governments and establish caliphate in these countries. Though they were divided, IMU and IGU, they have the common ties with other terrorist networks like the Haqqani network, Russian Caucasian group, and Al-Qaeda. So IGU and IMU, basically, they're the two terrorist organizations which pose a threat to the Central Asian security and the security of Kyrgyzstan. And now the internal threat is posed by a terrorist organization, Jaish-ul-Mahdi. Jaish-ul-Mahdi, which means Army of Righteous Ruler, is the first homegrown terrorist group of Kyrgyzstan, which was formed in 2010 with about 20 members. And the leader of Jaish-ul-Mahdi was Kyrgyz citizen and a Kyrgyz person, Savatbek Islamov, who was to whom all the members of Jaish-ul-Mahdi swore bayat, that is allegiance. The Jaish-ul-Mahdi basically were radicalized through the websites of the international terrorist organizations, as well as the teachings of Said Buryatsky, also known as Alexander Tikhomirov, is the terrorist from Russian Caucasia. The Jaish-ul-Mahdi perpetrated several terrorist acts and murdering of some district police officers in Bishkek, in the capital of Kyrgyzstan. The goal of Jaish-ul-Mahdi is the same as IMU and IGU. They try to establish a caliphate, overthrow the apostate regime in Kyrgyzstan, and establish caliphate in Kyrgyzstan and Central Asia. So here you can see the pictures. That to draw the attention and get some financial support, Jaish-ul-Mahdi organized some terrorist acts, and they posted a video where they declared jihad in Kyrgyzstan. And you can see the picture from the video on the left top. And they actually also, at the same time, they tried to enlarge their organization, the group, and disseminating the radical ideas amongst the young people. Savatbek Islamov over here, he was the leader of Jaish-ul-Mahdi, and the other members. It's not the best pictures. And Said Buryatsky, who was the inspirer, who was the number one inspirer of this terrorist organization, homegrown terrorist organization. Said Buryatsky, in his turn, swore allegiance to Doku Umarov. Doku Umarov was a terrorist number one in Russia, who was reportedly killed this year. So this is the first homegrown, I can say that this is the first homegrown terrorist organization in Kyrgyzstan and basically in Central Asia. They are not existing anymore. They were disrupted by security forces of Kyrgyzstan. But there is another extremist, not terrorist, but extremist organization, Hizb ut-Tahrir, which is very successful in Kyrgyzstan. It appeared in Kyrgyzstan in about 1997, and it characterized as a clandestine totalitarian organization. The Hizb ut-Tahrir Hizb ut-Tahrir's goals is the same as the IMU, IGU, and Jaish-ul-Mahdi. That is the establishment of caliphate in Central Asian states. Ways of Hizb ut-Tahrir is nonviolent dissemination of their ideology, and research shows that they're very active during the political instability. Ethnically, Hizb ut-Tahrir had people from various nationalities, but basically there were Uzbek, Kyrgyz, and Uyghurs. This chart shows that more than 80% of all radical movements in Kyrgyzstan are the members of Hizb ut-Tahrir. And although they officially declare that they do not use violence in their activity, there is a very subtle line between this extremist organization, Hizb ut-Tahrir, as an extremist organization, and other terrorist organizations. And for example, if you take an Akramiya, it's the terrorist organization which operates in Fergana Valley. The leader of Akramiya, Akram Yuldashev, and all members were former members of Hizb ut-Tahrir. So in a private conversation, they recognize the willingness to use any violence to achieve their goal, that is the establishment of caliphate. Areas of operation of Hizb ut-Tahrir. This map shows, as you can see, they basically very active in the south part of Kyrgyzstan, in Osh and Jalalabad and Batken. But last 5 to 7 years, they are very much expanded up to north part of Kyrgyzstan, which basically in the capital of Kyrgyzstan, Bishkek, in other main cities, regional cities, centers like Talas, Karakol, Issyk-Kul, Narin. So we can state that today Hizb ut-Tahrir basically operate equally all over Kyrgyzstan. The leadership of Hizb ut-Tahrir are characterized as very charismatic, eloquent, and have a strong personality. They publish religious brochures. They're very educated. They got their education from Islamic education institutes of basically Arabian Peninsula in Pakistan or Middle Eastern states. There are also, unfortunately, some members of Hizb ut-Tahrir who penetrated already in the state agencies and even the mass media. The external financial support of Hizb ut-Tahrir basically come from Saudi Arabia and other Middle Eastern states. Internal financial support comes from the members of Hizb ut-Tahrir who contribute from 5 to 20% of the, depending on their financial possibilities. There are enough business people who are the members of Hizb ut-Tahrir, and their contribution is pretty essential. They spend this money for purchasing automobiles, printing machine, and translation of their literature, which basically come from in Arabic language. So the Hizb ut-Tahrir, okay, now time of operation. 45% of all crimes instigating extremism are committed during the following holidays. These are the list of the holidays celebrated in Kyrgyzstan, main holidays celebrated in Kyrgyzstan. Hizb ut-Tahrir and other radical movements, they do not recognize these holidays, and they're very active, especially on these days, spreading the leaflets and not to celebrate this because it's the holidays of kafirs, non-believers, and they even spread sometimes special leaflets against the policemen, saying that police do not work for government, do not work for government or people, they work for devil. Now the radicalization. Basically, they radicalize first of all through social networks. There are websites similar to Facebook's. It's called Classmates. If we translate literally, classmate or agent through, and other websites and chat rooms where they discuss and upload videos of radical videos and discuss radical issues. Passing videos through cell phones was also one of the way. And recruiting among the Central Asians who are the immigrants in Russia. There are about more than 500,000 immigrants from Kyrgyzstan work in Russia. More than 1 million from Uzbekistan, more than 1 million from Tajikistan. So they basically go there not to work but to disseminate their radical ideas and they were pretty successful. In 2012, they sent a couple of dozens radicalized recruiters straight from Moscow to Syria through Turkey. And another way is radicalized spiritual leaders in mosques, Islamic schools, and rented apartments. Unfortunately, we have some imams or religious leaders, so those who are very much affected by these Hizb ut-Tahrir and radical ideas. And the panel system is a separate place, a separate issue, I would say, which is can be seen as a cauldron where the extremism boils inside the cauldron. Now the radicalization of women. While radical movements had 1.1% in 2005, by 2013 it made up 23%. It shows how fast women also are involved in radical movements, and basically they are the wives or relatives or friends of those men who espouse radical ideas. And increasing number of women today, they are involved by terrorist organizations and recruited and sent to Syria. Today it's officially known that only 10 women are in Syria fighting against the government. Their age between 18 and 25. The next chart shows how the terrorist extremist organization increased their activities. So in 2005, you can see it increases. In 2005, we had a first coup, and the next coup it was in 2010, and it again increases their activity. And it shows again that the Hizb ut-Tahrir and other radical movements in Kyrgyzstan, they use any political instability for their own purpose. And what do police do? Which department combat against terrorism and extremism in Kyrgyzstan of the Interior Ministry? Currently, only Department 10 of the Interior Ministry which combat against terrorism and extremism. And they cooperate with Islamic schools, mosques, and spiritual directorate of Muslims. They contract within internet space. They cooperate with security committee, which is basically as the main agency designed to combat against terrorism and extremism in Kyrgyzstan. They cooperate with law enforcement agencies and security agencies of neighboring countries. And they conduct counter-radicalization lectures and seminars within the assets of the Interior Ministry or outside. Recently, they held a lecture in south part of Kyrgyzstan, in Osh. The deputy chief of Department 10, he had a lecture, for radicalized women, and it was pretty much effective, because women were very impressed when they didn't expect that a police officer would come down and give them a lecture and explaining them difference between twisted religion and a true religion. So it is one of the effective way they do. Another thing is cooperation with mass media. Today, Department 10 also making a video, first movie which will counter-radicalize minds of young people in Kyrgyzstan. I think it should be released very soon. So now this is the structure of Department 10. And as you can see, in the national level, Department 10, they have most of the personnel in the national level. And we have 7 regional police departments, and every regional police department have regional office of Department 10, and at the same in the district level. But unfortunately, not all of the district office or district police departments has the unit of the Department 10. So some impediments of police combating extremism and terrorism. First of all, it's the perception of Department 10 as a political structure. Unfortunately, people perceive this department as a department which gather information against the opposition in Kyrgyzstan, but it's not true. They feel lack of experts in theology in Islam. They feel lack of analytics. They feel lack of personnel. And well, as I said, not every district police department have the unit, but if they have, for example, if we take the capital of Kyrgyzstan, Bishkek, there are 4 district police office, and in every district police office only 2 operative workers who work for Department 10. And the population of the Bishkek is more than 1 million. So you can imagine how difficult it is. And on top of that, they're pulled for other duties. And political instability is a big hurdle. For example, in 2013, there was, within 1 year only, there was about 900 political demonstrations. And it is very hindering. And nepotism and corruption is another problem in police. Trust police, it's also a separate problem, a big impediment. The poll on police trust in January 2014 shows that only 14% out of 1,000 respondents trust police, and 50% do not trust police. This is very important, and I think it's basically because of the corruption and sometimes the behavior of police officers. Now, I will give some recommendations. And first of all, we need to train not only the police officers from the Department 10, but police officers who work, like, for example, district police officers. The function of district police officers is very close, the philosophy is very close to community policing. And there are those who contract and work in the neighborhood and contract with people. And they need to be trained how to deal with radicals. We need close collaboration between police and security committee, much closer. As I said, the security committee is the main agency, state agency, which is designed to combat terrorism and extremism. But this Department 10 was established in the year of 2000, that is 14 years ago. And in the beginning, there was a very thick wall between the Department 10 and Security Committee in terms of sharing information. But today it's much better. We need the involvement of all state agencies, communities, and mass media in counter-radicalization. Unfortunately, many state agencies they see the counter-radical policy as a pure function of law enforcement agencies, and they just stay aside. Whereas we need a whole of government approach when every state agency in their sphere would be involved in counter-radicalization. We need a close collaboration with spiritual Muslim Directorate. Well, within the last 20 years after the collapse of Soviet Union, the government did not pay enough attention to the institutes and dynamics in the Muslim and in the religious community. So it's not too late, but we need much closer cooperation with them. Reduce nepotism and corruption in police. This is also a separate big issue. And monitor, analyze, and control the execution of state counter-radical policy. there is a necessity of a special experts, a special group of the experts on the national level who would not only require but help and explain how to work with, how to implement the counter-radicalization. The problem not in the laws or not in the programs. The problem in implementation. So at the end of my presentation, I would say that Kyrgyz Republic went through the political upheavals and had 2 coups in 2005 and 2010. And maintaining political stability is vital, as well as willingness to combat terrorism and extremism. So if another coup will happen in Kyrgyzstan, it is a very high possibility that radicals, religious radicals and religious extremist organization may step into politics and may seize the power in the parliament, which may deteriorate the situation not only in Kyrgyzstan but all of the Central Asia. So this is the end of my presentation, and if you have any question, I'll try to answer. Thank you for your attention.